What's going on, guys? How's it going? Phil Start here, and I'm back for another Spring Boot GraphQL video. But today it's a little bit different. Usually I talk about Spring Boot Kickstarter, or Spring Boot GraphQL Kickstarter, which is a third-party GraphQL implementation on top of Spring Boot. But today we're going to be jumping ship to the official Spring Boot GraphQL library. And why are we doing that? Because last year, the Spring team officially released a GraphQL library, and that library is actively maintained. It's now GA and has a full dedicated team or a few number of individuals who are really committed to the project, participate in the community, and you can see that the project is getting a lot of traction. There's lots of pull requests being merged. The framework is really improving. So I think it's time now that we start to look at the new framework, because we don't want to get left behind. And going forward, it's also healthy to look at also different frameworks, what they offer, what are they good at, what are they not so good at, and see if there's any way that you can participate back to that framework. And as you know, I'm a big Spring fan. I've been developing it for like 14 years now, and absolutely love it. So when I see an official library being released, especially the official library of GraphQL, because it's also something that I think is really powerful, and you can build really great applications and APIs with. So I see these two and they've come together, then immediately sparks my interest. But what's actually really cool about this framework, that's the official framework, is that the Spring team came together with the Graphql-java team, and they've actually worked together in close collaboration from the videos I've seen and what I've read. And that's really great, because it means that there's a really strong foundation between the two, or the core frameworks, the core Java GraphQL engine or library behind the scenes that Spring really builds on top of and abstracts. And I think that's it's a good building block, it's a good foundation for a really strong framework, to have all parties coming together to really collaborate. So that's extremely positive from my point of view. And also, when you look at all the Spring projects, the ones that have made it, they've had a lot of, once the project's released, there's a life cycle, and it's really important that there's people actively maintaining and updating and working with the community and building the framework. So it receives the security updates, also receives, usually bumping the versions, also receives feature requests. People can then contribute, push back into the Github repo and really build that out. So I think that over years, Spring have really been excellent in that and have led the way with all these projects. So again, super happy to see that now GraphQL is in there. And in this video, what we're going to be doing is looking at how we can, first of all, we're going to be starting with a schema, looking at the schema. How do we build a controller, which then we can expose some query mappings from, so some GraphQL queries. We're going to be looking at some exception handling. We're going to be looking at the n+1 problem, maybe looking at some custom scalar implementations. And we'll go from there. Depends how long I want to record for, but it's really just going to be a first feel, first look at the framework. We're not going to be going in too deep to all the features. So that being said, I won't hold you back anymore. Enough of me mumbling, rambling on, and enjoy the code.
So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and grab the Spring Boot starter dependencies, and you can bring down the parent and also bring down the normal dependencies here. And one thing you'll notice is a wee bit different is that I've also brought down a third-party dependency on GraphQL datetime Spring Boot starter. And why I've done that is that'll give us access to use the third-party date and time scalars out of the box within our schema. So first thing to get started is you want to define your query. So I'm not going to explain what a query is, or mutation, or subscription. I'll link the other videos for that, but let's just say you already know what a query is, and let's go ahead and create one in the Spring Boot official GraphQL library. So it's really simple. This schema stays the same as all the other GraphQL libraries. So in here, what we want to do is just quickly define a schema. So we want to get the schedule of a particular coach, and what that'll do is return a list of fitness classes to the client. So let's go ahead and create an enum for coach, and let's give myself and Peter, and what it will do is return fitness class. So it needs to be a type, and each fitness class has a coach. It also has, it needs an ID. What else? Let's say give it a start time. So starts at, and here what we need to do is go ahead and we're going to bring in the scalar type of the local datetime. So it starts at a local datetime, and let's just give it, say, ends at local datetime, and let's make these not null, and let's give it a difficulty level, and we'll give it 2 difficulty levels. Beginner, advanced. So now we have a really super simple GraphQL query to get the schedule of our favorite coach. And now let's go ahead and actually implement that. So let's, again, pure example, let's just create a fitness controller. Inside here, what we want to do is go ahead and make it, mark it as a controller within Spring Boot. So it means it'll get picked up and it'll expose the endpoints. We also want to bring in a logger. And yeah, that should be enough for now. Let's go and actually write our methods. So we want to say, okay, we want to return a list of fitness classes. So list fitness class, and the method here was schedule and accepts in a coach. And because it's an argument, we need to mark it as an argument, so that's an input argument. And what we also want to do is accept in the GraphQL context, just to show you that. So here, let's go say log.info and schedule. We'll mark it coach. And then we want to return the type, but in order to do that, we need to actually go ahead and create the types. So let's create a class in the fitness domain called fitness class. And this needs to contain all of the types we had in here. So let's go ahead and write them. Let's actually make this a record. And let's give it the builder annotation. So it needs to accept in an ID. So let's give it a UUID. And then it has a coach. I'm going to say local datetime. Starts at same local datetime ends at, and then the difficulty level. And what we want to do is go ahead and create the coach as well. So we're going into main again, and we have here Philip and Peter were the coaches, and we also have a difficulty level, which was beginner and advanced. So now we have our model done, and now what we're gonna do, I've got my key bindings all messed up. This new computer. Let's import these coaches, and now what we're going to do is return a list of fitness classes. So we can say fitness class dot builder. Let's populate that. So let's just say ID is a random UID. Coach is the coach. Starts at, let's say, let's give it a local datetime.now. So it starts at right now, and it ends at the start time plus 1 hour. And we're not going to return a difficulty level because we're going to use a batch mapping for that. Actually, let's add it, and then I'll enrich it with the difficulty level. So that's good to go. Let's start the server and see what went wrong or if it works. Okay, I started in port 8080. Let's go to your IDE. Refetch schema. Here we have schedule, provide the coach, Philip, and in here we can see, okay, we want the ID. Let's get the start at, let's get the end at, and the difficulty. Schedule is declared as a non-null. Post schedule is underscore no value. The ID code starts at end at difficulty. Aha, I forgot the query mapping. So in order to make this get picked up by Spring Boot, yeah, we need to define it as a query map, and I forgot the main point. All right, let's restart that one. We go back, let's play it again. That works, okay. So you can see it executing here when we execute from this local client. Boom. Here we go to server and execute it for schedule of Philip. So now what we want to do is evolve our schema a bit so that we can introduce the batch mapping annotation. And we need that because GraphQL has this n+1 problem. And what that is that for each type that you return within a list, if you execute a child resolver, then that'll typically happen in a sequential fashion. So what it'll do is execute the child resolver for the first fitness class in the list, and then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth. And if you have any distributed calls in there, any network requests, that can really add a lot of latency and can really be really detrimental for your application. So the batch mapping will allow us to group together that list and execute a single batch or bulk function. So what we want to do is bring in the batch mapping annotation, and in this case we're going to return a callable because it's going to execute asynchronously. And then what we need to do is return a map. So what we got to do is return the map of the key. So that's going to be the fitness class 2, and what we want to do is batch load these difficulties. So I'm going to return a batch or a map of the fitness class to difficulty. So let's say we need to call an external service to get these difficulty levels. That would be the use case. And now we need to name this. So we give it difficulty, the method name. And in here we accept in, it's going to be, it's a list, but it should also be a set, because this should be unique, or the keys should be set because they're going to go into a map. So let's say fitness classes, and we can also bring in the GraphQL context. And in here we need to return the actual callable. So this is going to be executed asynchronously. And in here, let's just keep it simple and say, okay, fitness classes dot stream, and for each one, we want to collect an unmodifiable map. And what we want to do is take the key, so we can return identity. And then we want to ignore that and just return difficulty. Say beginner. And let's replace that with a lambda, and that should be us. Good to go. Let me just write a log line here. And we'll say, okay, difficulty. And let's put another one just in here, or we'll just put a breakpoint so you can see it's in a different thread. Now, in order for this to execute, we actually have to execute it in a different thread. And in order to configure that, what you need to do is, I pre-wrote this earlier, you can take the annotated controller configurer in Spring, and then you can set the executor for that. So this is the executor, will execute all batch mapping callbacks. So you can go ahead and set this to whatever you feel you need. Let's stop the server and debug it. Let's go on Safari, play it again. So you'll see that this is now executed, the schedule, and now we are in the batch mapping here. And you can see that we are in the thread pool task executor 1, which is the thread pool that was defined in here. This thread pool task executor. And I should put a breakpoint here to show you the difference. So if we come here, you can see that I can now play that. And in the client, we have the difficulty returned. So if I play that again, you'll see now we're in the NIO executor, which is the servlet container executor. So it's going to be handling the NIO request. It's coming in, it's taking schedule. We're going to return the list of schedules. And for each of them schedules, they're going to get passed into this difficulty child resolver, which is the batch mapping. And if I put breakpoint here, you'll see it's still in the NIO because this has not actually executed the code yet. It's just returning the callable, which will be called by the executor. So here you can see we have access to the fitness class of Philip above. And then when we play it, it's now going to be executed within the thread pool task executor for asynchronous execution. So that's really nice feature of Spring. And if you want to pass things through, what you can do is use this context. So like, I don't know if I can access it here. I can't because of the debugger. But let's say that you want to set a variable or pass something through, then what you can do is say, okay, context dot put, let's say key value. So this could be, I don't know, some kind of credential. Let's say like API key. That's the value, and then inside here it'll be available within the context. But you can also do use an annotation context value. You can say API key. So the API key will be in both the context and here. So if I stop and debug, then you'll see I can propagate these context variables through from parent to child resolvers, or for anywhere else that has access to the context. And there are other ways to do that. This is just one approach. So you can see here the context, I put it in, API key. It's going to return the list, and inside here you can see API key has the value which we set here. But it will also be contained within this context. So it's a nice shortcut annotation for that. Okay, so that's a little example of GraphQL and Spring Boot. Super nice. And the last thing I wanted to show in this video is the exception handler. Why it's so small, but it's a bit bigger now. And inside here, in order to handle exceptions, you can override the data fetcher exception resolver adapter. And in here, you can typically either override resolve to single error, or you can resolve to multiple. So you can come in here and see which one you want to do. But there's a resolve to single, resolve to multiple, which are these ones are quite common. And in here, yeah, you can go ahead and inspect the annotation, or not the annotation, the friggin' exception type, and then return your custom exception or do whatever you want. So really short, quick, sweet introduction to the core features really of GraphQL Spring Boot. And hopefully you enjoyed this quick video, and yeah, take it easy, have a good one.